Marco's Fiery Flavors menu is back. Sadly, we can't show you our fiery pepperoni pizza topped with a bold Carolina Reaper cheese blend and 2 kinds of pepperoni. But here's some sounds that'll give you the same fiery feeling. Fiery pizza. Fiery cheesy bread. Inferno bread. Sounds delicious, right? The Fiery Flavors menu is back at Marco's Pizza for a limited time. Get it while it's hot. Limited time only. Price of participation may vary. Taxes may apply. See store for details.
Welcome to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic is the United States and the Middle East. The hostages are home. Praise God. For those of us who have been praying for this the entire time, this has been an amazing time. I mean, watching the videos of the hostages coming home, it's been really, really exciting, and it's been enlightening, and it's just been I don't know, I just have so much gratitude, and I'm grateful that they are home. But there are mixed emotions around this, and we have to discuss it. Because we know that there are some people who feel as though, Israel's the problem. You have other people who feel as though those who think that Israel is the problem is Hamas sympathizers and they love terrorists. And it's just a whole lot of back and forth. But before we discuss how we got here, we have to talk about what just happened in these last couple of days. So a 20-point peace plan was announced by President Donald Trump alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this plan comes at a critical moment amidst the ongoing crisis in Gaza following the Hamas brutal attack on October 7, 2023. So let's set the stage. So on October 13th, just minutes before a joint appearance between President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, the White House released this comprehensive 20-point plan, keeping in mind that this war had tragically killed over 1,200 Israelis, with 251 taken into hostage by Hamas. And this plan aimed for a ceasefire. It had a staged withdrawal of Israeli forces, and it had a significant exchange of nearly 2,000 Gazian prisoners for those hostages that were remaining. And they had to do it all within the tight time frame of 72 hours. Now, before both sides agreed to this proposal, Hamas, Qatar, and Egypt said that they would review it in good faith, right? That's what was said, because the mediators between Hamas and Israel was Qatar and Egypt. But let's not forget that Netanyahu put a strong position or had a strong stance when it came to all of this. He said that if their militants reject this plan, that Israel will be ready to finish the job. So, there was a lot of threats that were being made as well. And this is a critical moment, not just for Israel, but for global stability in the region as a whole. Now, in the long term, the plan looks like it's going to sideline Hamas entirely, but we know that these groups tend to pop up over and over and over again. And its proposal establishes a technocratic Palestinian committee and a Gaza International Transitional Authority, along with a 5-year reconstruction program funded by Arab states and international donors. This is about rebuilding Gaza with a fresh approach, moving away from this cycle of violence and trying to actually create something that's stable in that area, and something that has been plagued the region for far, far too long. Now, Biden did have comments about what happened. He said that my administration worked relentlessly to bring hostages home, get relief to the Palestinian civilians, and end the war. There were other bipartisan figures such as Bill Clinton who credited Trump, as well as Qatar and regional actors, for keeping the dialogue alive, so to speak, and leading to a cautious optimism about lasting peace. So now, what does this mean for the United States and its conservatives? Well, it showcases the effectiveness of strong leadership in foreign policy, because what happened was we saw our enemies take advantage of us and take advantage of the world and by attacking. because they felt like America was weak. They felt like we were at just a weak position as a whole, and we were with President Biden. But this also highlights the importance of working with our allies and the critical need for a long-term vision in the Middle East. So Trump's plan not only addresses immediate concerns, but it also sets the groundwork for a sustainable peace, which is something that we can all get behind, that we all should be supporting. But yet there are some people that are still not happy. So now that you have this glimpse into what just happened, I want to give you a clear, centered update that centers around these recent developments in the Middle East and beyond. Because amidst all the headlines, it is important to cut through all the noise and understand what is really happening. And that's what's not happening when it comes to those who are debating whether we should be supporting Hamas or supporting Israel. Because they're not understanding that all of this starts and ends with Iran. And that there's no Hamas without Iran. There's no October 7th without the financial support of Iran. So let's do a deep dive into that relationship, the relationship between America and Iran, and why there are so many people who tend to side with Israel rather than the Palestinian people during this current war. Because remember, just a few months ago, the United States launched a significant military operation, which were airstrikes that targeted at Iran's key nuclear sites. The operation was dubbed Midnight Hammer, and it involved 125 aircrafts, including support from United States Cyber Command and other strategic military units. And what was the goal? The goal was to hinder Iran's nuclear ambitions and to eliminate what many believe is an existential threat, a buildup that has spanned decades of hostility. So President Trump praised these strikes as a major achievement, emphasizing that they set back the Iran's nuclear program, which they're not supposed to have anyway. But of course, not everybody agrees. You have the Democrats who feel as though we can't or we shouldn't as Americans do anything without their approval. So they had some concerns over whether or not there should have been congressional approval and all this other stuff, warning that this could lead to another war, warning that it can prolong the conflict in the Middle East, as if that was going to go away on its own or resolve itself, or as if making nuclear weapons is not going to prolong the conflict. But either way, that was their concern. And ultimately, their major concern was that there would be retaliation. Nothing has happened so far, but that doesn't mean that it won't. But we do have to make sure that we understand that this was something that they were pushing against, thinking that retaliation would take place immediately. So just days after the strike, there was a Pentagon briefing where leaders defended the operation, giving details and highlighting the extensive research that went into this process, the planning that took place over more than a decade, and the significant damage caused to the Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, keep in mind, despite these recent losses, Iran still possesses around 1,500 missiles, none of which can reach the United States. So it's not necessarily a threat directly to us, but it could be a threat towards Israel. And Iran's foreign minister warned of everlasting consequences. So, they're threatening to do something, but they don't want none. They don't want it. They don't want to come after America. Believe that. And experts warn that there is a real risk that they could pull out of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, escalating their pursuit of nuclear weapons. And if they do, we would just come back and strike them again. So as you can see, there are risks in that are there. The stakes are high. The conflict is immense. But I think everyone understands that with every consequence, with every action, there carries consequences. There carries opportunities as well. And understanding a broader picture requires us to look back and examine history. It requires us to go back to the deep roots of the relationship between the United States and Iran. And how did we get to here today? How did we get to this point today? So coming up, I'm going to break down the historical context. I'm going to shed some light on these decades of tension that we've had with Iran, as well as diplomacy and the conflict and how it has shaped this really complex relationship. So don't leave the table. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Guy, and this is the Church's Moment. There is an incredible opportunity to start a distinct pro-life ministry at your church. We started one at our church about 5 years ago, and the fruit has been tangibly beautiful. We do monthly meetings that educate and equip the body of believers on sanctity of human life issues from womb to tomb by bringing in and featuring different pro-life leaders from all over Georgia, as well as featuring different ministries like post-abortion healing ministries or foster care ministries. There are so many great community partners out there. And then the second part of this pro-life ministry is having a care team. This is an opportunity to show moms in crisis, moms in unplanned, unwanted, or crisis pregnancies that the church is the place to run to, that the church is a safe haven and a place to go for tangible help, real hope, true compassion, friendship, and discipleship. And yes, an opportunity to share the gospel in both word and deed. Brothers and sisters in Christ, will you consider starting a distinct pro-life ministry at your church? It's so easy. Please contact me today to find out how simple this is. You can contact me at my email, proverbs318@att.net. This is the Church's Moment.
Marco's Fiery Flavors menu is back. Sadly, we can't show you our fiery pepperoni pizza topped with a bold Carolina Reaper cheese blend and 2 kinds of pepperoni. But here's some sounds that'll give you the same fiery feeling. Fiery pizza. Fiery cheesy bread. Inferno bread. Sounds delicious, right? The Fiery Flavors menu is back at Marco's Pizza for a limited time. Get it while it's hot. Limited time only. Price of participation may vary. Taxes may apply. See store for details.
Buying a car shouldn't be a mystery. Hi, I'm Stacey Ellis, Vice President of the Jim Ellis Automotive Group. At Jim Ellis, we believe in complete transparency because you deserve to know exactly what you're getting. That's why we show you all the numbers, no hidden fees, no surprises. We explain every option clearly so you can make the right decision with confidence. And if you ever have questions, we have answers. Our team is here to guide you, making sure you're informed and in control every step of the way. At Jim Ellis Automotive, we don't want to sell you just any car. We want to help you buy the right car, because doing the right thing for you is what matters most to us. Experience car buying the way it should be. Honest, straightforward, and built around you. And don't forget, Jim Ellis buys cars too. It's the safe and easy way to get maximum value for your car. To get started, visit one of our 21 convenient locations across Metro Atlanta or shop online at jimellis.com. The quick, easy, and convenient way to search and compare more than 5,500 cars, trucks, and SUVs. Jim Ellis Automotive, where you can always expect the best.
Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic is certainly one that's not for the kitchen table. It's the United States and the Middle East. We're going there. Now, as stated before, the peace plan that was signed recently has led to some political divide. Prior to the peace plan occurring, there was such a political divide that was happening, particularly when it comes to Israel. But you have to understand that all of this begins and ends with Iran. Iran is the real problem. And for over 4 decades, the United States has been engaged in this complex, often tense relationship with Iran. And many Americans just don't realize just how long and how complicated this history is, particularly our younger voters who are so emotional about all of this. They don't get the decades of actions and reactions that has brought us to this critical point. So today, I want to walk you through this journey. So I want you to kind of follow with me. It's going to be a little complicated because it's a complicated relationship. But you got to understand how we got here. I got to highlight the importance of our strength, our resolve, and the strategy around protecting our nation. So our story begins in the early 1950s. And it's really unbelievable to many people, but there was a time when Iran was a stabilizing force in the Middle East. And the man who was responsible for this was the Shah of Iran. His name was Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. And during his reign, Iran was aligned with the West. And the United States built a strong relationship with him. And as a result, we saw the rise of the Anglo Oil Company, which helped develop Iran's massive oil reserves and making them the fourth largest oil reserve in the world. Now, throughout this period, Iran was seen by America as a crucial partner, especially because of its role controlling Middle Eastern oil supplies. So it was as if we were kind of working together and we had like a partnership with Iran. But that relationship collapsed in 1979 when the Iranian Revolution ousted the Shah. So the American-backed leader was then replaced by a theocracy, and that's how we got to where we are today. Almost immediately, things turned sour. The Iranians took American hostages, 52 to be exact, and were held for 444 days under President Jimmy Carter's administration. Then we have Carter's failed rescue attempt, which only deepened distrust. And then this was a clear signal that the United States had lost influence in Iran and that Iran was taking a hard stance to become this anti-American regime. Now, in 1980 through 1988, there was a war that was taking place between Iran and Iraq. And the United States, under President Reagan, supported Iraq's fight against Iran. So we were kind of backing Iraq, seeing Saddam Hussein as a counterbalance to Iran's revolutionary influence. Now, this was what some people may call a pragmatic and a complicated alliance, but it was really so that we can contain Iran's spread of terrorism and radicalism into that small area versus having it spread throughout. But the violence didn't stop. In 1983, there was a bombing of a United States Marine barrack in Beirut, which killed 241 Americans and was carried out by Hezbollah, which was another terrorist group that was linked to Iran. A few years later, in 1984, Iran was officially added to the United States state sponsors of terrorism lists. And in 1990, events like the attempted attack on the United States military personnel in Saudi Arabia and the bombing of the United States embassies confirmed that threat. So it's been like this ongoing back and forth since the Shah was removed and now a theocracy took over the country and they are anti-American. So it's just kind of been like all these small attacks here and there. But then you have Operation Praying Mantis in 1988, which was ordered in response to the Iranian attacks, where you saw 56 Iranian sailors killed and 2 U.S. Navy personnel was lost. Then in 1988, Iran shot down the Pan Am flight of 103, and that was a tragedy because it devastated families and it showcased that Iran has a total disregard for any type of international relations. So now we're in 1995, and the United States then imposes a comprehensive economic embargo on Iran. So that's the first big embargo that we saw take place between the United States and Iran, and it aimed to pressure its regime and to halt it from its support of terrorism and the development of weapons, especially nuclear weapons. So this embargo was an economic embargo, but the goal was to isolate Iran and to limit its resources. And in response, Iran shifted its tactics, including supporting terrorist groups and trading in illicit ways, such as shipping to Syria despite EU sanctions. Now, fast forward past 1995, it leads us to the attack that we all remember, which was the 9/11 attack on America, which was a huge turning point because up until this point, everything was kind of taking place in the Middle East. But now they're coming on our soil. And many of us can remember exactly where we were when those planes hit the Trade Center. I was a junior in high school. I remember I was sitting in class and I saw it, watching it on TV. But where were you? Drop in the comment section where you were during the 9/11 attack, because it's like seared in our brains. Moving on. The United States prioritized fighting terrorism everywhere after we were attacked. There were intelligence reports suggesting that Iran might develop weapons of mass destruction. And now there was a lot of debate around this because Iran denied all of this, right? But the United States still believed that Iran was a major threat and that they were doing this. And there's still people who debate it, that feel as though this is why we were ushered into the Iraq war, but it wasn't necessary. So there's a lot of debate around that, but thus the Iraq war begun. During the George W. Bush's administration, the United States declared that Iran would not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons and that the efforts to build a coalition to prevent this goal intensified. So the economic embargo didn't necessarily shut them down. It kind of caused Iran to start retaliating against us economically. So then we fast forward past the Bush administration to the Obama administration. And in 2015, we saw a different approach. We saw that the United States and its allies negotiated the Iran nuclear deal, which was offering to lift sanctions in return for limits on Iran's nuclear program. So Obama started undoing a lot of what was being done and what had been done under the Bush administration. And while some of us saw, some people saw this as diplomacy, there were a lot of people, particularly us as Republicans, who argued that it was rewarding bad behavior and that it didn't do enough to prevent Iran's regional aggression. So now you have to fast forward to 2018. So now just following with me, we saw that George W. Bush said, no, you are not allowed to have nuclear weapons, that the economic embargo did not necessarily work. It just kind of strengthened Iran. But Bush said, okay, enough is enough. I'm putting my foot down. No more nuclear weapons. And then you have Obama come in and start rolling back some of those sanctions and trying to take this diplomatic approach, which you can't do because we all know that you do not negotiate with terrorists. But he tried. It didn't work. And so we fast forward to 2018 when President Trump gets into office, and he took a huge step by withdrawing from the Iran nuclear deal and reinstating those harsh sanctions and doubling down on a firm stance against Iran's regional activities. So he undid what Obama did. Now, that same year, Iran threatened to block entry points, effectively shutting down oil trade routes, an act that could have caused a major crash in the United States oil economy since we relied so heavily on Middle Eastern oil flow. So then we saw some other issues. In 2019, things kind of took a darker turn when the United States eliminated Qasem Soleimani, Iran's top military commander, in a targeted drone strike. Not long after that, Iran shot down a Ukraine international flight 752, which they mistaken for a United States military craft. So it showed that they were definitely trying to escalate. But throughout these decades, we have been in a constant back and forth, as you can see, fight with Iran, countering their efforts, defending our interests, and trying our best to protect our allies. And it's just a cycle of escalation, retaliation, somewhat diplomacy, but then it goes back to escalation, back to retaliation. It's just this back and forth. And that underscores the ongoing struggle for stability and security in our region. And as history shows us, this isn't a challenge that can be won through one administration. One particular administration can't solve it all. However, what we see today is definitely a huge step in the right direction. So now that you have a better understanding of how we got here through like the step by step, I kind of went through different years and going from 1950 all the way to where we are today. Now that you have that understanding, I found this clip from Governor Ron DeSantis out of Florida, who explains where we are today in a way that I thought was really good. But he really outlines why we cannot allow Iran to have access to nuclear weapons. Take a listen.
The country has been more hostile to the United States of America since 1979 than the Iranian mullahs have been. And that started with the hostage crisis in 79 and 80. It continued with the bombing of the Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon in 1983 that killed over 240 service members. You also saw it at the bombing of the Khobar Towers in 1996. And then when I was serving in Iraq as a junior officer, the majority of the casualties, both killed in action and wounded in action, at that time in the conflict, 2007 into 2008, were at the hands of Iranian-backed Shia militia. So they are responsible for maiming thousands of American service members and probably killing over 1,000 U.S. service members. The terrorism you see in the Middle East, whether it's Houthis, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, that is all because of Iran. Iran funds terrorism around the world, and they're the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Third, Iran's ideology since 1979 and their ruling class with the Ayatollah and his other clerics. We rely on mutually assured destruction to ensure that someone's not going to launch a nuclear attack. I mean, during the Cold War, Soviets had enough nuclear missiles to wipe America off the map. We had more than enough to wipe them off the map. They fired one at us, we'd fire back, and then we'd both end up going in a cloud of smoke. So that deterred, because it just wasn't worth doing. You know, the problem with Iran is these are militant Shia Islamists. And so they have a very apocalyptic, radical ideology. So mutually assured destruction for them, if they fire at Israel and knowing Israel will fire back and do immense damage, or the United States, I don't know if they could reach the United States yet, but if they did that, now because they do consider us the great Satan, they know that would be a lot of damage, but that may not be a deterrent for them. That may be an inducement to them. That may be furthering what they want to do. So I think people have recognized that them being able to acquire a nuclear weapon would be a unique challenge, not just for the region, but throughout the world. And you know, no one's really been willing to fully do anything about it. And I think President Trump showed decisiveness to be able, you know, to act when he did. Now people say, well, what are they going to do to respond? And they may, right? I don't think they can respond effectively conventionally against U.S. forces. They just don't have the ability. But that's not typically how they operate. They operate through these proxy groups, through these militia groups, through Hezbollah, through all this stuff. Who knows who they sent across the southern border during Biden's administration? We don't know, but I just think it's important to point out they've been waging conflict against the United States since 1979. They've really just been limited by their means. If they had more means, they would have done more. So I don't know that it's going to radically change certainly their capability, but their posture was hostile before this, and obviously, you know, it will be hostile since then. Now, for our part, when the IDF operations commenced against Iran and Iran started firing those ballistic missiles into Israel, we knew that that would impact residents of the state of Florida, because we have college students who are studying abroad that are students at our state university system. We have families that go on vacation to Israel. We had church groups that were going over there. We had Birthright Israel, people that were going to Israel for the first time in their lives. And we knew that they were in dire straits, because Ben Gurion Airport was totally shut down. It isn't like you've got a lot of great options. It isn't like you're in Florida and you can just go to Georgia or go to South Carolina. It's like, you know, that region is not the easiest region for folks.
So there you have it. There's so much that is misunderstood around this topic. And you have to honestly have some form of an interaction with those who are making decisions, or those who are around those who are making decisions, and talking to people who feel safe to fully understand. So after the break, I'm going to share my personal story, because I had some conversations with Arab and Palestinian leadership, not Hamas, but at least I didn't think they were. They didn't present themselves as that way, because these are people who are living in Israel. And I'm going to share my experience with you all and what I thought and what I felt when I spoke with those Arab leaders. We're almost finished. Don't leave the table. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Guy, and this is the Church's Moment. There is an incredible opportunity to start a distinct pro-life ministry at your church. We started one at our church about 5 years ago, and the fruit has been tangibly beautiful. We do monthly meetings that educate and equip the body of believers on sanctity of human life issues from womb to tomb by bringing in and featuring different pro-life leaders from all over Georgia, as well as featuring different ministries like post-abortion healing ministries or foster care ministries. There are so many great community partners out there. And then the second part of this pro-life ministry is having a care team. This is an opportunity to show moms in crisis, moms in unplanned, unwanted, or crisis pregnancies that the church is the place to run to, that the church is a safe haven and a place to go for tangible help, real hope, true compassion, friendship, and discipleship. And yes, an opportunity to share the gospel in both word and deed. Brothers and sisters in Christ, will you consider starting a distinct pro-life ministry at your church? It's so easy. Please contact me today to find out how simple this is. You can contact me at my email, proverbs31:8@att.net. This is the Church's Moment.
Marco's Fiery Flavors menu is back. Sadly, we can't show you our fiery pepperoni pizza topped with a bold Carolina Reaper cheese blend and 2 kinds of pepperoni. But here's some sounds that'll give you the same fiery feeling. Fiery pizza. Fiery cheesy bread. Inferno bread. Sounds delicious, right? The Fiery Flavors menu is back at Marco's Pizza for a limited time. Get it while it's hot. Limited time only. Price of participation may vary. Taxes may apply. See store for details.
Buying a car shouldn't be a mystery. Hi, I'm Stacey Ellis, Vice President of the Jim Ellis Automotive Group. At Jim Ellis, we believe in complete transparency because you deserve to know exactly what you're getting. That's why we show you all the numbers, no hidden fees, no surprises. We explain every option clearly so you can make the right decision with confidence. And if you ever have questions, we have answers. Our team is here to guide you, making sure you're informed and in control every step of the way. At Jim Ellis Automotive, we don't want to sell you just any car. We want to help you buy the right car, because doing the right thing for you is what matters most to us. Experience car buying the way it should be. Honest, straightforward, and built around you. And don't forget, Jim Ellis buys cars too. It's the safe and easy way to get maximum value for your car. To get started, visit one of our 21 convenient locations across Metro Atlanta or shop online at jimellis.com. The quick, easy, and convenient way to search and compare more than 5,500 cars, trucks, and SUVs. Jim Ellis Automotive, where you can always expect the best.
Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and that's right, this is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic is the United States and the Middle East. Now, before the break, we discussed a lot of background, so here's a quick recap for those of you that may have missed it or are joining me for the first time. We opened up by talking about the recent announcement that hostages are returning home, they have been released, and that there is a peace plan on the table. So on October 13, President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu unveiled a 20-point peace plan aimed at addressing the humanitarian crisis that's taking place in Gaza following the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023. The plan included a ceasefire, a staged withdrawal of Israeli forces, and a significant exchange of nearly 2,000 Ghazian prisoners for hostages within 72 hours. So on October 13th, 2025, President Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu unveiled a 20-point peace plan that was addressing the war and that has been going on ever since the Hamas attack on October 7th, 2023. It included a ceasefire, it included a withdrawal of Israeli forces, as well as an exchange of prisoners and hostages. We also discussed the critical role that Iran plays in the current dynamics and how Iran is at the center of all of this, emphasizing that there would be no Hamas without Iran's financial support. And then that led to us exploring the relationship between the United States and Iran. which have been fraught for over 4 decades. And we discuss how the United States launched military operations that targeted Iran's nuclear sites recently within the past couple of months, raising concerns about a potential escalation or retaliation. So we talked about all of that and how President Trump was on board with it. We went back to 1950 and we talked about how Iran was our ally at one point, and how the 1979 Iranian Revolution completely killed all of that. And then we ended the segment with insights from Governor Ron DeSantis on the importance of preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and emphasizing the need for informed discourse. So now I wanted to close on a personal note, because there's been so much back and forth regarding whether Israel is a true ally of America and whether we should support them and all these things. And I think this is a hot topic because there are so many people who don't understand what it truly means to be an ally. I think there are a bunch of people who feel as though ally means best friend, and that Israel is now supposed to be America first, and that America is supposed to only support Israel if it's something that directly benefits America. And that's where the issue lies. Because if you want to look at it from that perspective, then of course you will be anti-Israel, because it would appear that we're doing more for them than what they're doing for us. But that's just not true. The truth is, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. So if we're talking about a very small portion of the land in the Middle East, and the way I look at our relationship with Israel is that America is absolutely, truly America first, and we're supposed to be America first. But we're allies. We're not best friends. We're two individual countries who are meeting in the middle because we have a common purpose, and that is to defeat those in the Middle East that wish harm to both countries. And if you can't understand that, or you expect the relationship to look like anything beyond that, then you're going to be disappointed. So that takes me to my personal experience while I was in the Middle East. When I traveled to Israel, I had an opportunity to meet with Israeli leadership as well as Arab leadership. And what I can tell you is that there was a stark difference for me. I can't speak for everyone that was in the room or everyone that was there and their experiences, but what I can say is that during the time when I was there, it was during that time when President Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. And it not only stirred up a lot of emotions, but we could not go back to Jerusalem during that time because there were so many protests taking place. And at one point, I remember hearing about a man who was carrying a knife in a public place. So there was so much unrest at that time simply because he moved the embassy. And it just so happened that during that move, we were having dinner with Arab leadership. And when I got word that that was happening, I'm going to be honest, I pushed my plate away because I just didn't feel comfortable and I didn't know how everyone was feeling. There was a lot of whispering going on and it just made me feel a little uncomfortable. And I felt as though we could have been in a position where we were now the target, since you had all these Americans sitting at the table and I just didn't understand. I was a little nervous. I don't know. And considering that there were those who were so unhappy about the embassy moving, I just did not want to be the target that day. So I passed on my dessert and I said, I'll just listen instead. But I must say that just based on that one conversation, actually I had a couple of conversations, but based on those few conversations, when I spoke with Israeli leadership, I realized that there were people there who wanted to figure out how this can all work together. It sounded like they really had an interest in seeing how they can coexist. And it was already happening in some regard because there was a school that we visited where both Israeli children and Palestinian children or Arab children were there playing and teaching and coexisting. So I knew that there was something there and something that was being pushed, particularly on the Israeli side, to create some a relationship and some type of means of coexisting. However, when I spoke with those that represented the Palestinian side or the Arab side, the conversation was much more antagonistic. It was more so about trying to prove to me that Israel was not who they say they are, that they should not, or that we should not be supporting Israel. And now I get it. if you're going to talk to Americans and you're Arab and you're Palestinians and you don't want to see Israel supported, of course there's going to be an element of that's involved in them just wanting to explain to me that, Israel is not this or not that. But these were leaders who were in Israel. So that stood out to me. These were Arab leaders who were living in Israel and who were trying to explain to me why I shouldn't support Israel. So you would think that the conversation would be more about finding a commonality. You would think their conversation would be about working together. But that type of energy, it rubbed me the wrong way. It made me think that these people are not seeking peace, but they're seeking ownership. And therein lies the problem. You see, Israel 100% has the right to defend itself. And I get it that there are people who are determining that the way in which they're defending themselves is not what they think should be happening. But guess what? You don't get to decide. You don't get to decide how someone or the country defends itself. Because once the attack has happened on that country, they decide. And I'm so excited to see that there is movement happening. Now, do I think that this peace treaty is going to remain? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because this war is deep. I think it's just for the time being. And many of us who are believers, we understand and we see this as a spiritual war. We talked about the history, but I believe that this goes back further. I believe it goes all the way back to biblical times. And I do believe that we are living under a spiritual situation, and there's nothing that's going to be able to stop that except for Jesus himself. But here's what I encourage you to do as Americans. I encourage you to do your duty as Americans in protecting this country, understanding what is happening. Don't get into the weeds. Don't try to decipher between whether this is coming from someone who should have the land and those who should not have the land and all that other stuff. And we're going back. And all of that is not where we should be right now. We should be standing firm in our position. We should be praying for not just Israel, but also praying for the Middle East. And we should be hoping that one day there will actually be peace in the Middle East.
I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be, but we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to try and get over there, and we're working on the timing, the exact timing. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me, but we're going to have an official signing. And the amazing thing is all of the countries over there, from Qatar to Saudi Arabia to UAE to all of them, the rich ones, the less than rich ones, they've all come together, something which is amazing, actually. They've all come together for this, and they're really probably the best relationships they've ever had. So it's been really something incredible that nobody thought it was possible to get it done. And very importantly, the hostages are coming back. As you know, they consider them hostages. They talk about them as hostages, but there are approximately 28 dead people, mostly young, mostly men, but and boys. Boys. The one woman talked about her baby. Her baby's 25 years old, but to her it's her baby, and we're bringing them home. We're getting everything, and to those parents, the dead young man is just as important, as though this person were alive. It's amazing. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've been very much involved. I've never seen anything quite like it. But it's really peace in the Middle East. And you remember October 7th was terrible, but also from the Hamas standpoint, they probably lost 70,000 people. That's big retribution. But at some point, that whole thing has to stop. and we're going to see to it. Gaza is going to be slowly redone. You have tremendous wealth in that part of the world by certain countries, and just a small part of that, what they make will do wonders for Gaza. And I think you're going to see some tremendous countries stepping up and putting up a lot of money and taking care of things. But there's tremendous spirit like I haven't seen. And even the news, I won't call it fake news for this purpose, because they really were very fair today, I must tell you, in all cases. But they covered it very well. They covered it very fairly. Everybody loves it. Everybody. People that were never giving us a fair shake, frankly, they can't even believe it. They're so they're amazed by it. A lot of people are. But it was just everything came together. I think the attack was very important on Iran, because let's say that didn't happen, they'd probably by now have a nuclear weapon, numerous nuclear weapons, and therefore, even if we signed a deal, there'd be a big dark cloud over it, and it wouldn't be the same thing. So Iran's different, but Iran wants to work on peace now. They've informed us, and they've acknowledged that they are totally in favor of this deal. They think it's a great thing. So we appreciate that, and we'll work with Iran. As you know, we have major sanctions on Iran and lots of other things. We would like to see them be able to rebuild their country too, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. So I want to express my tremendous gratitude to the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey for helping us reach this incredible day and for being there. They were there with us all the way. And of course, as you know, Saudi Arabia and Jordan and so many. I will tell you, President Erdogan was personally involved in dealing with Hamas and some of the others. He's been great. They've all been really amazing. Indonesia's been amazing. Indonesia's been fantastic. The whole world has come together for this. People that didn't get along, people that didn't like each other, neighboring countries that frankly didn't like each other, but now it's just this moment in time. So we look forward to welcoming the hostages, like you can't believe, home to their families, and that'll take place early next week. We hope Monday or Tuesday. And all Americans should be proud of the role that our country has played in bringing this terrible conflict to an end. And I want to thank, some of the people, JD, you were fantastic, and Pete, you were great. Marco was fantastic. Some of you were very much involved. I'm looking around. So indirectly, I think almost everybody in this room was involved. Susie, I want to thank you very much. You were incredible. You've done an incredible job. So, and yes, John, what you've done was invaluable. CIA, John Ratcliffe, and he's done an incredible job. So I want to thank you all, and if I'm missing anybody, I apologize, but you've been amazing. And then you have Steve Witkoff, who worked so hard. And you remember we settled 7, this is number 8, we settled 7 wars or major conflicts, but wars. And this is number 8. And the one that I thought would be maybe the quickest of all would be Russia-Ukraine, and I think that's going to happen too. But in the meantime, they're losing about 7,000 people a week, and that seems pretty bad. They're losing mostly soldiers, young soldiers. They go out to war, and they're getting killed. And while it doesn't affect us in a lot of ways, we've got a big ocean in between, you don't want to see that happen. It was a big mistake. That war should have never happened.
Until next time, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never stop seeking the truth.
Marco's Fiery Flavors menu is back. Sadly, we can't show you our fiery pepperoni pizza topped with a bold Carolina Reaper cheese blend and 2 kinds of pepperoni. But here's some sounds that'll give you the same fiery feeling. Fiery pizza. Fiery cheesy bread. Inferno bread. Sounds delicious, right? The Fiery Flavors menu is back at Marco's Pizza for a limited time. Get it while it's hot. Limited time only. Price of participation may vary. Taxes may apply. See store for details.
Buying a car shouldn't be a mystery. Hi, I'm Stacey Ellis, Vice President of the Jim Ellis Automotive Group. At Jim Ellis, we believe in complete transparency because you deserve to know exactly what you're getting. That's why we show you all the numbers, no hidden fees, no surprises. We explain every option clearly so you can make the right decision with confidence. And if you ever have questions, we have answers. Our team is here to guide you, making sure you're informed and in control every step of the way. At Jim Ellis Automotive, we don't want to sell you just any car. We want to help you buy the right car, because doing the right thing for you is what matters most to us. Experience car buying the way it should be, honest, straightforward, and built around you. And don't forget, Jim Ellis buys cars too. It's the safe and easy way to get maximum value for your car. To get started, visit one of our 21 convenient locations across Metro Atlanta or shop online at jimellis.com. The quick, easy, and convenient way to search and compare more than 5,500 cars, trucks, and SUVs. Jim Ellis Automotive, where you can always expect the best.